Joining us now in the studio, ABC 7 political analyst Laura Washington, and as well as David Greising, who's the president of the Better Government Association. Thank you both for being here. Thanks for being with us for the last 4 hours.
It's been fun.
Great insight all night.
I don't even know where we start, but
Yeah.
why don't we start with voter turnout, David? Because we had talked about that from the early start of the day, that it was low, comes in at about 20%, so not historically low. I mean, it was what, 2012 might have been worse, but this was still a low turnout.
Well, if there had been closer presidential primaries, then perhaps people might have turned out. The other notable thing about it is that the age range, the median age of the voter was somewhere above 55 years old, which means the younger voter did not show up at the polls. And that probably had a big effect on some of the outcomes, perhaps especially in the Bring Chicago Home referendum vote.
Yeah, because a lot of the incumbents won tonight, and perhaps that affected the voter turnout, the older votes. You know, Congressman Danny Davis spoke all night about don't count out,
Right.
you know, the senior citizens. Perhaps that made a big difference in all of the incumbents winning tonight, because you said the younger voters did not turn out tonight.
But I think it's a warning sign for November, particularly for the top of the ticket for Joe Biden, because younger voters is a group that he really needs to work on. There's a lot of dissatisfaction about the migrant issue, about Gaza, and those folks did not show up at the polls. They're disappointment, and there's a lot of those are top people in this election. Biden and Trump are not particularly popular with either of their bases, so they've got some work to do.
Yeah, Bring Chicago Home looks to be a no. You and I were discussing this, well, throughout the night, all of us, that there was a big push by progressives and the CTU to go out and try and get this passed. Confusion legally, it's on the ballot, but it won't count. I mean, there was a lot that went into perhaps a resounding signal from the Chicago taxpayers that they didn't want to do this.
I think I was expecting this them to be able to bring this vote home, the supporters, because they were so well organized. The Chicago Teachers Union, a number of other progressive organizations, Tony Preckwinkle, Mayor Johnson, they were all behind this, but they couldn't sell to the voters. The tax issue, the confusion, they just weren't buying it, no matter how well organized the supporters were.
Very personal issue for Mayor Johnson, talking about his brother when he died, was addicted and unhoused. But when people hear the numbers, the perception and reality, when they hear raised taxes, that seems to affect how people vote when it's talking about their pocketbooks.
Well, especially people who pay rent for an apartment. And this was viewed as a very progressive move, but when people started really looking at it, it actually is a regressive tax for the people who have to rent, because the landlords made it clear that if this tax passed, they were going to raise rents because they were going to pass on the cost of the additional tax.
And it was the fact about the unaccountability, where the money that they were talking about projecting, $100 million, how would it be spent, who was going to account for it, and how is it going to be organized? So very interesting. All right. Thank you both for your analysis and your expertise tonight.
You both got to come back when this Cook County State's Attorney race gets solved.